Well, welcome, listener, to another episode of Spam, Spam, Spam Humbug. What episode number is this? This is episode 147 of the podcast, and there's some oddities to this episode, as you've kind of come to expect from us. Mostly because I was actually not at home when I recorded. I was outside of my house attempting to effect some repairs on one of my vehicles, which had broken down. And I thought at the time that I had maybe tripped the immobilizer system on it, which was preventing the ignition from actually turning over and starting the engine. Turns out the problem was other. We don't get into what other means in the episode of the podcast because, of course, this was recorded while I was still attempting to troubleshoot. But that's the reason that my audio for the rest of the episode sounds tinny, distant, and, like I'm phoning it in, because I literally was using a Bluetooth headset with my phone. We talk for a little while about Genshin Impact and Among Us, and there's some comparisons made between like Genshin Impact and Honkai Impact. Genshin Impact, if you haven't heard, is what's the company's name? MiHoYo, I think. Tech Otakus Save the World, that's their tagline. This is a Chinese-based game development company, and Genshin Impact has garnered a lot of comparisons to like Breath of the Wild, the Legend of Zelda game for Nintendo Switch. It looks awesome, it plays really, really well, and it's cross-platform for the most part. You can play it on mobile, you can play it on PC, you can play it on, I think it's on Xbox, it is on PlayStation as well, but of course, PlayStation and cross-play, they don't usually get along. But Golem Dragon's been playing it for a bit, so we get a really good summary of what streaming the game has been like and what, responses to the game have been like, and generally seem to have been very, very favorable as well. And we talk about some other games as well, like I say, Among Us, Stardew Valley. We get onto Shroud of the Avatar for a little bit. Thanks, computer. We talk about WoW, and in particular the Shadowlands expansion, which I guess is still in beta. We talk about physical games like Mafia and Werewolf, and how my scouts play them versus some of the different ways that other people on the conversation have talked about them too. Clortos is back and gives a little mini review of Outward again for Golem Dragon's sake for the most part. We get in a few digs at EA, or we comment rather on some of the digs at EA in Ultima 7, which leads to sort of a wider conversation about the development of Ultima 9 and how a lot of the stories that we heard about what things were like working under EA from Richard Garriott and others turned out to be distortions would be, I think, the kindest word I could maybe use for them. As more and more evidence came to light, we have this narrative of Origin Systems being this plucky little company that EA bought and crushed. And then over the years, we've gotten all of these stories of what was actually going on behind the scenes at Origin. And all of a sudden, EA's imposition of things like development deadlines started to make a little more sense, and then a lot more sense. We talk about that at some length. And then we get on to Star Wars. And it's actually pretty much Star Wars all through to the end of the episode after that. So if you like Star Wars, there you go. Of course, we are still hosted on Anchor.fm, a little bit more social podcast hosting platform. You can find us at Anchor.fm/SSSH podcast or at spamspamspamhumbug.com. And we are also on Patreon, patreon.com/ultimacodex, if you would like to join that particular crew of backers. That is sort of a combined way of supporting both the podcast and the Codex, and we would like to thank, as always, everyone who does so by that means, and especially a hearty thank you to our co-producers, Seth, Golden Flame, Chris, Dominic, Violation, Helgruff, Gronk, and Pascal. Alright, that's enough from me. Please do consider sharing our episodes with your social media circles. I've been seeing a real uptick in listens lately, so thank you for doing that, those of you who have been. Let's get on with the show.
I am out of the house.
What's going on? What has you actually out of the house?
I am attempting to bypass the security controls on my own vehicle.
Did you lock your keys in a car?
No, worse. I have the keys and they work just fine. But so we went to the Edmonton Corn Maze on the weekend, on Saturday.
Okay.
Beautiful fall day. The Corn Maze is good fun.
Oh, yeah,
and
100%.
Yeah, last time I was there was in 2017. That's when Anthem was the theme.
Okay.
It was like it was actually had I think they had one of the one of the mecha, or one of the you know, like the maze was done kind of in the shape of one of the suits and like the BioWare logo, and it was great. That was 2017. This year it was kind of more like stronger together, I think was the message. You know, sort of rah Alberta, quarantine, lockdown, blah blah blah. So anyways, took the kids out to the corn maze. Great. A few hours later, we're all done the corn maze and all the other amenities that are there, because it's kind of got like a little farmer's market and whatever else. But I head back to the vehicle a little bit early with my son, who's being 3 and having just blitzed through it. I mean, like, he was running, just having blitzed through the entirety of the corn maze twice. He was pretty shagged out. He's like, Dad, I want to go to the car. Okay, fine, we'll go to the car. Take him back to the car, open the car, turn the car on. Evidently, this was the wrong order of events. It had been sitting out in the sun. I just wanted it to cool down, but in his little 3-year-old brain, this was the wrong order of events. He got quite upset. So, whatever, turn the car off. Load him into the car, and then I actually thought I had turned the car back on, but I don't know if I did. Maybe I just had it sitting in accessory mode for a while. Regardless, when I did in fact attempt to start the car, because I turned it off again, and then when I attempted to start it, it would not start. All right, cool, well, maybe it's the battery. But no, when I turn it on to accessory mode, everything lights up and I can see the battery still has sufficient voltage. Okay, well, maybe it's something else. And so I start ripping through all the manual and I start looking up what all the different warning lights mean. And basically, and most vehicles have this. On GM, it's called passkey. But most vehicles nowadays have like an anti-hot wiring system.
Right.
Whereby I guess the way it works, I don't entirely know, is like basically it's basically like a last ditch interrupt between basically what it does is it's like a little interrupt between the battery and the rest of the car. And the idea is it's supposed to prevent theft by like hot wiring, for example. The car can draw power in accessory mode. The battery is in otherwise good working order. But if you actually try and turn the engine over, it gives you no power. And that was literally what was happening. Is, you know, I would try and turn to ignite and everything would just drop. Like, it's just stone dead. And there's a little icon on the dash, which is basically like a car with a lock through it. So, okay, seems I have done something to piss off passkey.
Yeah.
And like the way it's normally supposed to activate the moment I pull the key out of the ignition. And then it's supposed to deactivate when the key goes into the ignition.
Interesting.
But, yeah, like it's all meant to be very seamless from the user's perspective. But for whatever reason, something I did really cheesed it off. And
blame the kid. It's all his.
Well, you know what though? In talking through this, I think I may have actually solved what the issue is. But so right now, like we had to get it towed, so we got it towed to the service shop that's kind of just across town from home. It's where we usually take it if it needs anything. Anyways, so it's there, and kids have all gone to bed. So I am back at the shop. And I'm attempting to, I started searching around for, and of course, obviously, you know, GM is pretty cagey about like, oh yeah, here's totally how you circumvent our security system to not jack your own car. Yeah, no, they don't exactly publish that, but Googling around, calling around to a few dealerships, I've amassed a list of potential procedures that I could try. And as near as I can tell, none of them involve animal sacrifice, but some come close.
Will any of them potentially leave you even more bricked than you are now, though?
No, it seems
good.
not.
That's important.
But yes. But in talking through all of this, the one possibility, so everything about the passkey 3 system is actually tied to, like, there is a sensor in the car, but the business end of passkey 3 is actually in the key. And I wonder, just talking through all of this now, if maybe if I didn't actually start the car that second time like I thought I had, if it was just sitting in accessory mode, Well, that's actually, if you leave it in accessory mode long enough, I wonder if that sort of blanked out the programming and made the car not recognize the key. Because in theory, to program a new key, there's this very arcane procedure where you have to turn the car on, but not ignition, for 10 minutes, then turn it off. Wait 30 seconds, turn it on, not ignition, wait for 10 minutes, then turn it off, then turn it on, wait for 10 minutes, and it should be able to program the key. So maybe that's what I did. Maybe
you somehow duplicated this very arcane ritual by accident.
Yeah, or just, maybe you leave it sitting in accessory too long, and it's just like, I don't know what that key is anymore. Dumps its memory. Bug in the system that I've inadvertently identified, maybe, I don't know. So, at any rate, in a few minutes here, at any rate, I should be able to go back and have another attempt at getting in. Well, I can get into the vehicle. It's just getting it to start up. That's the trick. So that's how my night's going, and that's why I've got the old Plantronics headset out of the box, and I'm connecting, via Bluetooth over LTE from just kind of off downtown.
It happens. It's not the first time one of us is connected while on the road or away from home.
At least it's a quiet night.
He's about 7 interface layers in to make this work.
And yet, it's mostly effortless.
Oh, sure. Once you've got all the wiring sorted, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, well, yeah. Or in this case, I don't really even have wires.
It was not my best analogy, but,
So I do have a pair of pliers, though, because if this procedure doesn't work, the next thing I'm doing is pulling out the alarm fuse.
Yeah, that always is an option.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
This cannot possibly go wrong.
I have spares somewhere.
If at first you don't succeed, keep trying till you finally break it, and then just replace it and be done.
Well, that's why it's parked outside the shop.
Yeah, that's what we call you bricked it trying to fix it.
Yeah. The worst.
It's the solution path you usually want to avoid.
I mean, so I guess to come back to that question, there's not really much I can do to make it worse, but blowing a fuse, I guess, would end the night right there. Because if the alarm fuse is blown, then it's not going to start regardless.
Nope.
But like I say, I have some spare fuses here, so.
Well, that certainly makes your weekend a lot more interesting.
So you basically just have to hope that your system doesn't refuse your refuse.
Exactly. There you go. So that's how that's going. But whatever. It's if I wasn't talking to you guys, I'd probably be checking out that new mobile game that, for whatever reason, has been lighting up. Like, God, even Destructoid had an article about it.
Which one is this?
Well, okay, so Among Us? No. Well, okay, Among Us is fun too, but I'm talking about Genshin Impact.
Oh, I've been playing that.
You have? How is that?
Yes. So to preface this, Sophia Narwitz played it on stream, and she and I have always had some very good interactions. And she's one of the few game journalists out there that do a really good job always, in my opinion. And I've been playing on it, and it's got decent voice acting. The free-to-play aspect isn't terrible. Like, it doesn't feel like forced to spend money ever. And some of the characters you get just playing the story and unlock are actually kind of fun.
Nice.
And it's actually a rather reasonably fun game. And the fact you can have cross-play and cross-save between mobile and PC is especially nice. I really like that.
Cross-play I could care less about, but cross-save?
Yeah,
you've got my attention.
You can feed your addiction on either platform.
Oh, yes. The cross-save is amazing. And everyone who can play it on PlayStation is fucked because Sony will not let them use the cross-save. It is terrible for them.
It's also on PC, I think, right?
Yes. I have the PC installer on my computer, and I installed it Thursday night and played it a bunch. Played it a bunch today. Played it a bunch Saturday as well. I'm definitely looking forward to it, to keep trying to go through and finish the story. It is surprisingly fun. For just an action-adventure game, it's surprisingly interesting. You can definitely tell it's Asian developers, but...
Yeah. Well, that's good, though, because, I remember, and this was some time ago, but maybe not that long ago, I guess, in relative terms for the podcast, but a while back, Drax had mentioned Honkai Impact the Third, which is, I guess, by the same company. It's not as open world, and it's much more action driven. And for Harmony Dragon's interest, I suppose it's also much more waifu friendly, or waifu centric. But from what I gather, like Genshin Impact is the same developers. I don't know if it's the same team or if it's like a huge studio, but from I was looking at the two games on the App Store today, and visually I can definitely see the parallels. Some of the design choices are in the combat. Okay, that looks, but whereas Honkai Impact is again much more of like an actioner, and it's level based as far as I understand. Genshin is
You have adventure level and you have character levels, and you're
Yes.
leveling both.
and it's
Oh, and your
more
weapons also
open
level
world.
up. Oh yeah, the open world's fun too, because as you explore, there's random chests around. There's all the items for crafting. The cooking's a lot of fun. Like it
And I was hearing
feels
that-
like an Asian MMO, but it doesn't actually have. It isn't actually an MMO though.
Yeah. See, and I was reading a thing at Forbes. I think it was Forbes, or maybe it was Destructoid. I have it saved in Instapaper regardless, where it was talking about how one thing not to miss with the game is, I guess there's an adventurers guild, and they will give you daily
Quests.
quests, and so to kind of complete those.
Yep, and even the dungeons are fun to do. It's actually a rather enjoyable game. There are some games as of late that I've tried that were pretty terrible. But with Wasteland 3 and that and Monster Hunter Worlds, I've gotten some nice, really good games for just single player action, which has been kind of nice. Now, I know you can do co-op with Genshin from what it sounds like, but I haven't tried that at all. I should probably bug one of the people I know that plays it. But it's so satisfying as a single player game. I feel like it's kind of a waste to want to do co-op.
Why would I even play multiplayer in this? I'm having too much fun on my own.
Yeah, it's perfect for Serger in that way. It's like, no, here, just play it single player.
In many ways, that would probably be what would happen if, Reckoning ever did have or ever had been given a multiplayer mode.
Yeah, pretty much.
I probably would have just played it single player anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fascinating to kind of go through it, and the story's kind of fun. And I don't know, it was one that surprised me because when Sophia played it on stream, she had just kind of run around and done some of the early stuff, but she didn't do any of the story. And we had 24 of us just sitting there watching, kind of being surprised that a free to play game with a gacha system didn't actually feel like you had to be spending money. And most gacha games, that's literally what they do, is you feel obligated to spend lots of money to get the best characters.
So what you're saying
Right.
is that a golem found a unicorn?
Oh, I didn't even find it. I only started getting into it because of that friend.
What game are we talking about?
Genshin Impact. I started noticing a bunch of articles about it, so just on a whim, I picked it up. And apparently, it's kind of like a Breath of the Wild Asian MMO, but single player with rather permissive and decent free to play.
I can play it on stream, or I can stream it in Discord sometime if people want to see it.
Having played literally dozens of free-to-play MMOs, I can tell you the cash shops from the gamut, from everything from being very permissive and decent to the game basically just being a money mill.
Yes, well, we've seen those before too, but yeah, from what I gather, this one is not that, so that's all right.
Yeah, it looks like the multiplayer option is Adventure Rank 16, and it's basically just an online co-op mode.
Not bad.
But it kind of feels, the world kind of feels like what you typically expect from a Korean MMO, which is the kind of fun part, because I've played a lot of Korean MMOs.
I have burnt so much time into Mabinogi back in my day.
But at the same time, it's definitely has the Breath of the Wild feel too, which is very satisfying. Some of the monsters are actually kind of cute. The dragon that you see early on in the game actually looks like a really cool dragon. We had Fall Guys come out, then we had Among Us completely take away all the speed that Fall Guys was having. And I've been streaming Among Us a lot and playing with, let's see, let me calculate the hours here. I've put approximately 110 hours already into Among Us, if you count both mobile and PC versions combined. And
Wow.
Genshin, I've already put 8 hours into it, and it's a lot of fun. And that's sucking all the single player people that are kind of sick of Among Us already. It's just kind of hilarious how we just go from one to the next to the next. And the coolest part is, like, they're not expensive games. They're really reasonably priced or even free. And they're just killing it. It's kind of nice to see these, big AAA games kind of just be like, no one cares. We're all going to wait for Cyberpunk. We're going to play all these indie games and just kind of ignore everyone else.
I found something tangentially related and mildly amusing that I've tossed into the screenshots section.
Oh, what did you bestow upon us here?
A gift.
Now, there's an indie game that
Beware
was
of a
terrible.
Helgriff bearing gifts.
Come now.
It's
Mind
the Shrouded. For those who don't see it, it's a Shroud of the Avatar meme that he made.
That's terrible.
I avoided mentioning specific people by name because I don't feel like dealing with the rage fallout. But I can't say I didn't think of it.
Yeah,
That's a clever one. You get kudos.
That's almost episode art right there. I'm thinking about that one now.
But no,
I said I was
a
going to
rather
log into that.
fascinating situation the industry's in. But I kind of enjoy the fact it's an Asian one. But like Fall Guys is a UK developer. Among Us is just this tiny group of 3 guys that are all kind of cool dudes. I mean, even Among Us, they've even dropped doing a sequel, and they're just going to upgrade and recode some of the first game and expand it because it's grown so huge. I can't think of many developers where they've literally canceled the sequel just to expand the original.
Stardew
Yeah,
Valley is
that's
kind of like
Origin?
Well, yeah, I guess maybe Origin.
Yeah, that might be one.
that. The Stardew Valley guy like specifically said, "I'm not going to do a sequel. I'm just going to keep working on this game because I love it.
Right, I forgot about that.
It's a great game. I love
They
it."
added multiplayer to it because of how much it grew. Well, there we go. 2 good indie games, very simple art styles.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, streaming's what made them big.
Now, what if the plans for Soda had worked out where we would be like playing on mobile and on PC? That would be an interesting day.
It would be.
And it's very obvious. It's very obvious in the early proof art. I've been looking at a few of those early videos, and it's very clear they were aiming on some sort of mobile capability.
Well, I think with that proof of concept video they did, that looked very much like graphics that would be easily done on mobile.
Mm-hmm.
With that dragon, the little lightning shield and all that. Like, that looks like a mobile.
Yeah.
Well, probably because it grew out of the Ultimate RPG concept work, right? Which was, strictly speaking, not mobile. That was targeting a Facebook game, but these days that's kind of a distinction with almost no difference.
That dead horse that's hanging from the pole from the road to from Britain to Pause in Ultima 9. That's that Shroud of the Avatar.
No, terrible.
Well,
Not untrue, but terrible.
I'm just gonna say if you want to compare Shroud of the Avatar to a sticky dripping mess, you can.
Depends on the sticky dripping mess.
Well, we take dead horses and we make glue out of them.
True.
So the analogy holds. You just have to work at it a little.
Free your mind. Not sure if that was meant to be Morpheus or Gollum.
More like a Kawatu the Watcher, Total Recall.
So was there a topic?
Well, we already kind of covered the Genshin one.
Oh yeah.
It's more like we've discussed things, but is there a formal official topic? I'm kind of doubting.
Do we ever stay on topic is the question.
No, we never
We're
stay on
dragons.
topic.
We're never
That's
going to
a
stay
given.
on topic. It's just
Yeah.
the way we are.
Yeah, we don't stay on topic, but every now and then we have a topic. And sometimes it even gets discussed. Like a blog or two ago.
Yeah, that was actually nice. It's a rare occasion. It's kind of nice to have it happen.
I actually missed that session. Coincidence? Who knows?
I think not. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, here's another fun game thing. Y'all see what Blizzard decided to actually do?
No.
Last
Are you
week?
talking about the delay of the expansion or something else?
Yes, the delay of the expansion. That was
Yeah, they-
actually kind of nice to see them after the debacle that was BFA.
I'll admit, BFA didn't. I didn't get as hard into BFA as I did the expansion immediately before it, but I didn't have any problems with it either, personally.
BFA had some issues at launch that really needed to get fixed. And then we had broken systems like the corruption system that was broken, still is to this point.
Issues. BFA had subscriptions.
Yeah, that was the only thing it actually provided for them. And even then, there was plenty of them dropped at certain moments. Like even essences didn't work exactly as they should have, although they did fix that a little bit. The Azerite system, they tried to fix it. It's still terrible. They never learned the issue of stuff from with the artifact system from Legion. But
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is the Azerite system personally felt like they took the artifact system from Legion and just gutted out the soul and pieced out little bits here and there for the Azerite system.
I mean, ultimately, a weapon growth system is a weapon growth system. There's only so many ways you can dress that horse.
the islands were terrible, yet people constantly grinded them. Partly for the collectibles, and that I understand. But even those were just terrible.
Even the whole name of the expansion felt like a dodge because you thought it was going to be this great over-encompassing world war, and it turns out you're fighting Cthulhu.
Well, that's what World of Warcraft falls back on when they can't think of a better enemy. I mean, Katoon, whatever that thing was that was in the water, whose name I can't remember, who was there and then gone and then back again. And there's at least one other great one that they've trumpeted about for at length. But I can't even remember the name of it.
Well, yeah, we've gone, we fought 3 old gods. We had the Dealing of the Heart of that one back in Mists of Pandaria.
And my fiance is getting on her iPad and finger painting the word nerd at me.
Aww. That's true love right there.
But the fact that she's finger painting it on the iPad kind of implies that she's in that same boat.
Yes, it does imply that she's in the same boat.
All right, like I said, it's love. But no, it's good to see them make some things. There's a lot of balance issues with the beta. And so it's one of those things where thankfully they're listening and putting things off. And in fact, they've done a lot more listening with this particular expansion than they ever did with before BFA.
The bulk of what I know
Nice.
about Shadowlands is from watching Taliesin and Evital. And what Go ahead.
Who are these people?
I have a bone to pick with him, but that's a whole separate.
A whole separate episode.
Most of what I've been hearing is that the faction specific powers are not remotely balanced,
and they're not really all that fun unless you have one of the overpowered ones. Like you can basically perma-slow a paladin at one point to the point where you can barely walk, and it's like, yep, I'm done. I'm just gonna quit. It's not fun to play anymore. You can't do anything in PvP. You're stuck standing there dying.
Decades of MMOs have told, decades of games in general have taught us if there's one or two upgrade paths that are more powerful than the rest, that's all anybody will ever play.
Yeah, and if you look at sort of one of the things they wanted to avoid specifically was sort of a tier sheet where all the different powers are ranked as if they're best in slot, good, moderate, poor, worst. Literally, the first thing that happens in beta is the first thing that's created. And they need to just accept reality that a meta is going to exist and stop trying to do this whole, we don't want to allow a meta. It's like, yes, there's going to be people that break it and don't care and just play casually and have fun. But there's always going to be people that try to come up with what's the most optimal meta. And trying to fight against that and try to prevent it is sucking the fun out of the game.
Yeah. Exactly. Have they not heard of Icy Veins DPS charts? Or I think maybe they have, because whichever spec is in the lead seems to fluctuate wildly from patch to patch.
Well, yeah, and we have the issues where like certain classes always start off super powerful, and it's always the same ones at the start of every expansion. You always have certain ones that always have the worst ones. Within the first week, they already have to rebalance it again. It's like, can you not, finally learn after all these years to not make these same stupid mistakes?
Clearly, balance is a simple problem that does not involve multiple contingencies and layering and all sorts of other issues.
Well, it's more an issue where they're told for months that this is a problem, and they just ignore it because they'd rather focus on other stuff. And that's, I think, where the problem lies.
I have to wonder just how many problems they're hearing about for all these months, and whether they have any appreciable way of saying, okay, which of these problems are being complained about are problems, and which of these problems are just people trying to get us to give them a nice little buff back? And how do you determine that? How readily?
Well, most of the complaints have actually been along the lines of not punishing players, taking advantage of systems that are actually fun. Like, for instance, they are doing that one system with the different soul binds. And it's like, do you really want to punish players with, how that system works? And they finally listened and made certain big, huge changes with it. But that took 3 months of people questioning them. Why are we doing it this way? Why do you want it this way? Like, wouldn't it be better this way? And finally, Ian after one interview, finally was just like, you know what? Yes, we need to make these changes. And it's like, why didn't your designers think of this in the first place? Do they not play the game?
And how much of it is at the designer level, and how much of it is? I mean, do we know how independent Blizzard still is, and how much of this might just be if Activision is sufficiently, how should we put this, micromanaging overlord?
Well, from what the rumors said, it took a lot for Activision just to give them approval to delay it as little as they did. Wouldn't surprise me if they weren't, basically losing any and all leverage they had just to push the game off as many weeks as they did. And now I've basically lost any chance to push off certain other things. Like, there were certain patches with BFA where they really should have delayed it, but they didn't because Activision's like, nope, this is the day we want to roll it out.
What? A publisher rushing a release?
It's like the exact opposite.
We had the discussion about with EA and certain other ones doing the same thing, and it's like, yep. It's one of the reasons why we're so glad that Cyberpunk's delayed is because CD Projekt Red doesn't want to release a game that's terribly buggy and certain problems exist then at launch that's just going to ruin people's fun and the experience. Like, we want the gameplay to be fun. If the gameplay's not fun, they're not going to stick around. It's not like people play, World of Warcraft necessarily for a deep story. Story's not all that deep. Especially since they do the whole multimedia thing where you get half the story in the game, half the story in the books and the videos. So a lot of people who play it don't even get half the story. Did I kill y'all?
No.
We were just listening.
Discovered an awkward pause in the conversation.
I thought for a minute they were playing Among Us and I just killed everyone.
Well,
wouldn't be the first time I've carried as an imposter.
Well, right?
Well, I have a 97% win rate as imposter, so...
Well, yeah, I realized Among Us is basically just a video game version of Mafia.
Or Werewolf.
Yep.
Pick your term.
Yes, it is. It is very like that.
I've wanted to maybe get a Dragon group together just to play it for a little bit one night for fun. But then I realized everyone's just going to suspect me and kill me no matter what.
Well, here's the thing with you having, a bunch of old, grizzled gamers who don't trust a goddamn person playing a game where it's built on trying to figure out how to get people to trust you long enough not to kill you.
Yep.
They'll just kill everyone consecutively.
Plus you have the whole issue of, memorizing where people are going, who was where, when, and whatnot. Memory problems.
Yeah,
as you get older is not exactly.
The difference between Among Us and straight up Werewolf or Mafia is the fact that, you actually have to walk around the ship, and you're not always seeing everyone at all times. So you're not just dealing with people's ability to sell you a story. I mean, that's important, but there's more to it.
Yeah, I literally was looking on my phone after I killed a body this past stream on Saturday. Wasn't paying attention, was almost caught by a dear friend, and I somehow was able to bullshit my way out of it as imposter.
Impressive.
Selling a story is a huge part of it.
Well, selling a story is still it's still a social deduction game ultimately. There's just a couple of extra just a couple of extra technical concerns because of the whole video aspect of it.
I still kind of miss Mafia. But that was a college thing, and I don't like thinking about college,
So the first time, and I mean, I think that was kind of like post my stint in college, maybe, I don't know. Or maybe it just wasn't a thing that we did in the Compy Club, I'm not sure. But we introduced the scout group to Werewolf at our winter camp, before the world went crazy and we couldn't do camps anymore. So we were just killing time around, winter camp, and it was fairly cold. It was down to about minus 30 at nighttime. So we had finished the day's outdoors activities, moved everything indoors. They were just kicking back with some warm drinks and snacks. and sitting around like this log, this wood-fired stove, and Morgan, who's one of the scouters and also a rover herself, decided to just up and pull out Mafia from werewolf from it's just like, hey, why don't we play this? This sounds like fun. So they played around with that and they loved it enough that when we had to switch over to virtual meetings, Morgan spent, I don't know who she enlisted from her group of friends to play test this, but she spent probably a month working out all of the necessary details to make it engaging and fun to play via Zoom.
Okay.
And I know she had done some dry runs or some test runs because there was no, when she ran this for them, there was no iffiness. There was no wait, hang on. Maybe we should do, no, she had it down and they had a blast with it.
I've mostly played these games literally through online forums, so it's more like play by post.
Right.
So the time that you don't have the people right there seeing them, and the time frame shifts somewhat. Generally, the way most of them runs, the day phase will last 2 real life days. And then the night phase, usually night phase actions like the wolf kill, the scry, and all that, usually get processed out over the course of a single day.
Right.
And then the narrators post the results of what all happened. So it's definitely doable through an online format. You could take a skeleton of that, adopt it to Zoom, and just figure out the critical issues of how to inform people. Okay, you guys are the werewolves, and I need you and only you to look at your Zoom screens now or something to know who your fellows are.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nice thing about Zoom is it has a private chat.
Well, that would help. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I used to play a lot of Mafia as we played it on IRC back in the day.
Right.
And having private chat made it so much easier to notify who was who.
I'm kind of a little proud of myself for one thing, because in the group we were at, that most of us were playing in at the time, there were certain players who had gotten a reputation for being really good, so they tended to get scried and or killed right away.
Oh yeah.
That's the problem I have with Among Us.
To the point that the same players would get scried by both by the seer and the devil the first night almost every time. So I created a solution which has been adopted by these boards, and I don't know if it's spread beyond them or not. It's literally called Hellgraph's Scry Interference Rule. If multiple people with scrying abilities target the same person the same night, they both get no result.
Yeah.
It is up to the narrator to determine whether or not they are told failed because of scry interference or literally no result, or some variant of your scry failed.
Well, letting them know it was because somebody else was scrying implies that the person that was being scryed is worth scrying again.
Yes, but if both players that got their scries foiled try the same thing the next night, they still hit each other and they both knock themselves out and they end up wasting their scries.
Right.
The idea is to get them to shake the jar and go after other targets, at least initially, to minimize the odds of them wasting their ability.
I like it. It's clean and simple. I always like rules like that, where it's so clean and efficient. It just takes care of the problem.
Yeah. I've seen so many different variations of that, like somebody who's told that they're they can investigate, but there's the specific thing is that their investigation always gives the opposite of what the right answer is.
Yeah, there's a series of interpretations of a role commonly called the Fool that basically run that gamut. Some of them they always get a wrong reading. Some of them they get a random reading. So there's a slim but non-zero chance it'll be accurate, slightly higher if the person they're scrying is just a basic villager, just because of the commonality of the role. And usually in games like that, they're not told they're the Fool, they're told they're the Seer. If they scry the actual Seer, they scry the Seer and they're told that person's the Fool. So until you can get some way of backing up your data, you're never really certain if you're the seer or the fool.
Well, that's maybe a little more in depth than we played it with the scouts, but still, it was popular. That thud you just heard was me closing my hood after popping out the engine control module fuses. So let's see if this thing starts. And no.
And the great experiment fails.
Has failed. I'll bet you anything it's probably the keys, like the actual key proper.
That was my gut instinct from the start. It sounded like it was
you
probably a
managed
key
to
issue.
psycho erase the key?
Well, not psycho erase the key, but evidently I did something to it. So,
Well, you
oh well.
did. Good job.
Well,
Good try, everybody.
the trick with that is you need to plug the controller into the second port so you can't be read.
We're not dealing with Psycho Mantis here.
Oh, that's terrible. It's good, but it's terrible. Yeah. So, well, I guess I'll have to call the service place in the morning and see when they can actually service the darn thing.
Dear service, I was unable to hotwire my own car. Please help.
Well, almost. But what do you do? I mean, it's a good thing that, well, it's a good thing we have a second vehicle.
Oh yeah, that's probably the best thing.
And it's a good thing that it's Monday morning tomorrow, because Friday used to be grocery day. Sometime along the timeline from March to now, Monday became grocery day. I don't even remember when that was. It's been a while now. March, 3 years ago, when March was. And
This has been the longest 6 months I've personally lived. That's for freaking sure.
for damn sure. But anyways, so Monday mornings follow a fairly predictable routine. I roll out of, my daughter rolls out of bed first. Why the almost teenager is the one who gets up the earliest baffles me, but we'll go with it. She's got to get to school first anyway, so it does actually work.
Yeah, well, she's not yet hit the point where her teenage energy batteries have gone from supercharged to no juice.
Yeah, well, yeah, or something. I don't know.
Could be worse. I'm reminded of an old skit from Animaniacs, Katie Kaboom.
Oh God.
Hey, man, I haven't heard that one in a while.
Boy, we're dating ourselves, aren't we?
We already were.
Not really. Animaniacs is making a comeback this year.
I had heard that. I had heard that.
Oh, is it?
Supposedly,
Is that what's happening?
I haven't seen any animation yet. I mean,
I've seen a trailer and that's it.
all right. I need to go to bed here shortly, but I just wanted to ask one thing before I head out. I stayed up way too late last night after streaming, and I don't need to do the same thing if I'm going to be up in approximately 3.5 hours.
Oh yeah, no, good enough.
Rothbard, how have you been enjoying Outward? And have you seen what I basically said was how it should have been, what Soda should have been, what that game is?
yeah.
That
I mean,
was
that's kind of what
literally
I said.
last week's topic. That was Rothbard's
Yeah.
topic.
I
Yeah, that
missed
was my
last
thing.
week, so I was kind of curious. So you did
No,
see
like
that?
I'm actually playing it right now for the first time since we recorded that, and at first I was like, "What was I doing again?" And then I'm sort of on track. Last time I worked really hard to get a bunch of money to pay off my family's blood debt and get everything cleared with the village. But
right,
then I was
yes.
promptly told that nope,
You're kicked
you're
out of the
going to lose
lighthouse.
everything. You didn't get it in time, et cetera, et cetera. And but now I have gone to another village of Berg and pledged my fealty to some faction, and the faction promised, "Hey, we'll take care of your blood debt." And now I'm on my way back to Scherzo because the other piece of
nice.
news they told me was that Scherzo is possibly under attack by some coast bandits, I guess you'd call them.
Huh.
Nope. So you got as far as I
Arrgh.
did when I
Oh.
streamed it. Okay. Because I kept playing after I streamed it, but that's as far as I played when I streamed it.
So,
But I was just kind of curious what your reaction was. And
So
Yeah.
upside, downside. You've cleared your blood debt. On the downside, everyone you know and love may be under attack by bandits right now.
Yeah.
On the plus side, maybe if he gets rid of the bandits in an expedient fashion, they'll give him his stuff back.
Oh yeah.
Probably not, but maybe.
Have you died yet in the game? That's the other part.
Yes. I have met the Immaculate.
What do you think about having a system like that where you never actually die and you always have to run back and get your loot, or sometimes you have to
what I
get
said
back
about
in the
that
zone or the original area?
what I said about that last time was that I feel like it's very Ultima. I actually, because like you never really die in most Ultima games, right?
Yep.
Except for Ultima 8. Ultima 8, you just die.
All
But-
the time.
All the time and more.
Yeah, it happens
But
a
like
bit.
Ultima 7, you know, the whatever the fellowship people are that find you. And
Yeah.
then Ultima
then
4,
drop you off
Ultima 5,
British brings you back. Yep.
British brings you back and says, "Be more careful out there."
And you know,
Um,
if you're fast enough, you can preempt Elizabeth and Abraham just by casting the help cantrip and get yourself insta-gibbed back to Lord British's throne room.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice too.
Well, good. That makes me happy to hear that you saw the same things I was seeing. So
Yeah, like I'm very pleased with it. It's one other thing I really like about it. It does have, you don't have the arrow telling you where to go, which that's one thing again that they were trying to say, oh, we don't like that with Shroud of the Avatar, but then
the gorgeous night sky, there's actual voice acting.
you're saying that and it's night while I'm walking on the way back to Scherzo, so I'm looking up. It is very pretty.
Yeah,
And
for a small budget, it's
yeah,
a really amazing game. And so I was hoping that you would enjoy it after recommending it. So
no, I think it's very impressive. Oh no,
that makes me
bandits.
happy.
Ah,
Nice.
On the topic of Ultima 7, though, it took me years before I made the connection between Elizabeth and Abraham and the Blackrock shapes. And, this is all a giant diggity A.
All right. Well, I'm going to head out. I will catch you guys later.
All right.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Here.
Have a good one, Golem.
Yes. EA destroyed the magic of Ultima, drove people insane,
Oh man,
shut down transportation.
this is not directly related, but I sort of have been offhand on and off again, checking in on the status of Spoonie, and I don't know, maybe we shouldn't even really talk about that. It's probably a waste of time, but it's funny because that was his big thing. EA ruined Ultima, and I time has kind of told us something different. I really think Shroud of the Avatar, that's one of the biggest accomplishments of Shroud of the Avatar, is to show me there are two sides to every story.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like even before Shroud, I had started to, and we had started to see this come out, but it came out as with literally everything to do with Origin systems. It comes out piecemeal, right? And that's been true of, like, I mean, if you think about like the way we learned about Ultima 9's development, right? We had the final game, and for the longest time, all we had beyond the final game was a handful of here and there comments from the developers and Bob White's summary. And okay, that, so that kind of, having that initially kind of lent itself to to the establishment of sort of like a base narrative or a base understanding of what Ultima 9 was and how its development had gone wrong. And what we've learned since then, or at least what I've learned since then, is that Bob's kind of full of crap, and he had a bunch of axes to grind, and the story going on behind the scenes at Origin was way more complicated than anything that we had access to back in, say, 99, 2000, 2001. It's way more complicated than anything we had access to back in the day would have indicated. Since then, we've seen so much more come to light about Ultima 9 and its development, and some of the different the sheer number of times that it was canceled and just everything like that. We've seen all of that come to light, And so now we have a much more nuanced understanding of the game, including the fact that, hey, some of the more controversial elements of the plot in the final game were present in the base story, the Bob White plot, right? We were so convinced for so long that, oh my gosh, it was so much better under the Bob White plot. And no, literally all of the points that everybody was most up in arms about, especially the Avatar Guardian duality or the Raven romance, they were all there right from the get-go.
I'll have to say the Guardian plotline was sort of my wake-up call about that. That was where I was like, oh, so that was what they were planning all along. Okay.
Yeah. And like I say, that's kind of a microcosm, a small example of how, we've gone about understanding and re-understanding and learning about the relationship between EA and Origin, right? We had, helped in no small part by Richard Garriott's own storytelling in this regard, this initial image of EA as the destroyer of worlds, the destroyer of companies, right? That came in and forced their way on the series, and it was, their repeated insistence on ship or kill deadlines that, resulted in these buggy and broken games. And in the intervening years, especially starting in like about 2003, which is when I think The Escapist published their big thing about
the death of Origin, something like
right,
that.
The downfall of Origin. And, that was a hard read because it was a very complicated, it painted a very complicated picture of, goings on at the company and you read it and you're just like, okay, like I started at that actually a little bit before then, but around then is when I kind of started to sympathize with EA because it's like, what a pack of idiots, you read about some of the shenanigans and just some of the sheer waste of budget and time and resources that seemed to be like the routine at Origin.
Please don't filter, Kenneth. Please let us know your true feelings.
Well, and I mean, like, I love the final product, but it just seems that the way that we got to those final products was so incredibly tumultuous and in many cases, wasteful of resources, of money, of time. I started to understand. It's like, okay, suddenly I get why EA told you need to ship the game by this time or we need to move on.
Well, the problem is people don't like complicated. They like having someone to blame. They like things simple. I could mention so many different, things in real world politics there, but I'd rather us talk about happy things and not things that are
like the downfall of Origin systems. Sure, go on.
Happy things.
Well, at the very least, that's concerning video games.
Yeah,
I think one example that pops in my head. I think for baseline conspiracy theory, it's almost comforting for people to think, oh well, there's this evil cabal somewhere that's just working out all the things and controlling the world and et cetera, et cetera. And when the reality is, it's probably much more complex than that. I actually listened to a podcast a few weeks ago that basically was covering the JFK quote unquote conspiracies. And actually they made a pretty good case for the murder of JFK to have been more or less a huge accident that the government actually tried to cover up because they had been so absurdly failures at their work of protecting the president. And I'd never thought about that before, but it's like, that's much more realistic than the majority of things you hear out there. So
we covered it up because it made us look bad, and we don't.
Why wouldn't they?
And possibly losing our jobs and stuff.
Government covering up things that make them look bad is common. Me lie, full stop.
Oh hell, not even government companies do it too.
Yeah.
But on the topic of
kind of a human instinct.
Yeah,
coming back to Origin,
that virtue of honesty seems to get a short shift a lot.
But on the topic of Origin mismanaging money and mismanaging time, I've seen countless stories of early startup businesses or smaller companies that were independent grossly mismanaging time and money. I mean, look at 38 Games and the problems they had with funding with the original Amalur.
No, 38 Studios, yeah. Ugh, that was bad.
There was a joke for the longest time that they damn near bankrupted the state of Rhode Island over that.
Yeah, well, probably not. It was only 75 million, but still, that's a lot of money for,
Or one could also look at the early years of Origin, for example, or for other mismanagement of time and money and resources. One could look at early Wizards of the Coast and them talking about mostly being a bunch of 20-somethings smoking a lot of weed and doing a lot of questionable stuff with having too much money that they knew what to do with in the early days.
Sierra was like that too, as Richard Garriott tells it. Or was it Sierra? No, who bought the first game?
California Pacific.
Thank you, Calpac.
Well, he said the same about Sierra.
I think he said similar things about Sierra, if I remember correctly.
I mean, granted, this was the company that gave us Leisure Suit Larry. So,
well, yeah. I gotta think. Okay. On the subject of finances gone amok. Anybody know what the original pitched budget for Wing Commander 3 was?
Way too much.
$500K. That was Chris Roberts' initial pitch. $500K development budget.
Yeah.
I don't remember what Wing Commander 3's budget was. I think Wing 4 was like in the 11-12 million range. So even if Wing 3 was half that, he blew his estimate by 12 times. Because somewhere along the line, I don't think in the initial pitch there was any mention of full motion video or anything like that. Somewhere along the line, he's just like, you know what this game needs? Real actors in real cutscenes. We're going to build all the sets, we'll do all the effects. Just like,
getting Mark Hamill. I don't even know if $500,000 paid his retainer, much less.
Probably not after Star Wars. And like, that's obviously it went through, and obviously it worked, and it made a ton of money. Wing 3 sold very, very well, in no small part because of Mark Hamill's star power. Like, Chris Roberts took a bet there, but he cashed in on it. He did well. But,
I will point out, just as a slight countermeasure, there was a period post Star Wars, but before, when Mark Hamill was not finding a lot of work. That's true. He had that. There was a time when he played when he played a priest in a truly god awful movie. The only reason I remember is I remember seeing his face and I'm like, wait, why is Luke Skywalker a priest? More or less.
And he was in the Big Red One, I think.
I still remember him in that one Jay and Silent Bob movie.
But yeah, there was a period when he was not working steadily.
That's true, and actually, that's a fair point. Is that a lot of the cast of Star Wars didn't really go on to reliable work after the fact. Harrison
Ford was basically the big standout, and Alec Guinness, well, he was already a big name.
That was kind of the end of his career.
I think that was part of his. I think he agreed that he would show up in the first movie as long as he died.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did what Harrison Ford wanted to have to happen for his character, and didn't actually get to have happen until the 7th movie in the series, way later.
Although, to be fair, I mean, like, Guinness for his part was kind of notorious for being very down on Star Wars after the fact. I think he derisively referred to it as his pension a little later on in life, because I don't think he really got paid that much for his actual appearance. He was kind of, offered a percentage, whatever that was, of revenues.
Well, in the long run, that worked out for him.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think he started calling it his pension, because even a 100% on $4 billion, that's a lot of money.
Yes. Given the shoestring budget that Episode 4 was filmed on, even in its time.
Yeah, no, and and the other part that I like about that is, like, Lucas went to Fox and he told him he wanted, like, when they agreed to be the distributor, like, he told them he wanted rights to the merchandise. And Fox laughed at him. Fox laughed at him because they're like, well, who the hell's going to merchandise this movie? Like, I mean, sure, if you want them, go ahead.
And then it turned out George is planning on merchandising this baby from day one.
Yeah, he thought that one through, and I mean, like the merchandise alone let him bankroll Empire Strikes Back.
Merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made. Lucas knew this.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny though. Back in the early days, before a lot of the things were set in stone, the experimental things they did with Star Wars early on, and I don't just mean the holiday special.
I was gonna ask.
Now, see, that was just another example of Hollywood drugs.
Yeah,
And most of them were being taken by Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, well,
At the time, yes.
I mean, I feel bad, the suffering she did with addiction, but hearing her trying to sing a Christmas song to the theme of the Star Wars theme while that blitzed on coke it's kind of like a train wreck. You don't want to stare, but you can't look away.
I think my favorite story. Oh, sorry.
Mark Hamill had just recently, I believe, when they filmed that, he had just recently been in his car accident. So
yeah,
he might have been on painkillers.
Yeah,
probably.
I think. Yeah, he also had so much makeup on.
Reasonably likely, even.
After you, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. My favorite Carrie Fisher story is from Empire Strikes Back. I gotta find this book. It's in my basement somewhere. I gotta find this book again because it's like by a journalist who was basically embedded with the film crew. So he even got like stranded with them up on the glacier in Norway. But they were filming a scene, and it's not a scene that actually even made it into the movie. There was a scene that had been written, and they were trying to film it where Leia slaps Lando. And nobody told Carrie Fisher about telegraphing the slap.
Oh.
So literally the first take was, whack, ow, what the fuck, Carrie?
Brent. Cut, Brent.
Yeah, right. It's like, you don't actually hit him, you telegraph. Oh, okay.
About the holiday though. If it wasn't for the holiday special, we wouldn't have had Boba Fett.
Yeah, well, there are some who would argue that we are poorer for it, but on the plus side, I do like what has been done with, not with Boba Fett in particularly. I don't actually really like what they've done with that character because he dies like a chump in Return of the Jedi. And then when you see him again in the prequels, well, you see his dad mostly, Jango Fett, but then the kid, I actually hate Boba Fett the kid. He's more annoying to me than Jake Lloyd.
Remember that
he's just a little
remember
brat,
that shot of him like holding his dad's head in the helmet.
Admittedly, he's like scowling like 97% of the time.
Yeah, he's just a little punk. I don't like him at all. But so I don't like. I mean, I know everybody likes Boba Fett, but I have no idea why. Because apart from
I'll tell you
Empire
why.
Strikes Back, the character's not really cool. Go on.
I'll tell you why kids liked him when I was a kid was the Tales from Mos Eisley book.
Oh.
Because it had this whole story where he was from this world called Concord Dawn and his whole backstory and all, and how he had this like moral code, et cetera, et cetera. That's why he was cool. He was cool in the expanded universe, and I think that somehow trickled down to how like people just think he's cool, even though that story is not canon.
Well,
that's my theory.
He had like 4 or 5 lines in the original trilogy, and even before the prequels came out, he had a huge fan base.
You know what, though?
He had 7 lines in the original trilogy, and one of them was, ah!
Somebody's watched the Deadpool epic rap battle.
Yeah. Though, Rothbard, you may have hit it on the head there, because, like, I don't care for the Boba Fett character, but I love what... And Lucas had a hand in the Clone Wars, but this is mostly Dave Filoni, who really was Lucas's understudy. But like you think about the Clone Wars, or even then Star Wars Rebels, or now The Mandalorian, right? They took, because like you mentioned, Tales from Mos Eisley and like how he's from a planet called Concord Dawn. Well, no, obviously, that part of the expanded universe has kind of been jettisoned, but at the same time, some of those Concord Dawn reappears as a world in Star Wars Rebels, right? It's
okay. I didn't know that.
the concept of Fett's moral code has been adapted into the Mandalorian way, right? And Dave Filoni, like the Mandalorians are his perennial favorite race to bring into and just mess around with in Star Wars. There's multiple story arcs that touch on Mandalore in the Clone Wars. It's I mean, if you've seen all of the Clone Wars, the closing shot of The Mandalorian season 1, my wife and I finally watched that, and I deliberately made her watch like 4 episodes of the Clone Wars just to make sure that, just before we did that, a couple nights before, I made her watch like 4 episodes of the Clone Wars. I'm just like, I think we should rewatch these stories.
That's abuse, Kenneth.
Yeah, well, I know. She loves sci-fi almost more than I do, so yeah, it was real suffering for her.
Okay.
Real hard sell there.
I know, right? But
it would be for my wife, but yeah. It
was worth it because, then at the end of it, right in that climactic scene, right at the end, we were both just like, it's the thing with he's got that. It was great. It was, but, maybe you have hit it on the nose there. Maybe it is actually that, that book and, some of the mythos that it grew out around Boba Fett is why he was cool. And now we have, the showrunners for Star Wars today taking that material and not using it exactly as it is, but adapting it in such a way that it's not really making Boba Fett more cool, although apparently they may be teasing his return in season 2 of The Mandalorian. We'll see. But they've definitely taken the Mandalorian concept and just expanded it and made something really awesome out of it.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I know they've mentioned that they're going to be bringing in Ahsoka Tano from Clone Wars in season.
Hell yeah, they are.
And they're going to have Rosario Dawson doing it, if I do remember correctly.
Yep, that is true.
Now, to me, that sounds interesting.
And she wanted that role. She wanted that role, like, she was like, I can't remember the exact thing, but like basically she was like, right up to Filoni or somebody who's like, I really want to play this character. And I mean, to be fair, Tano is the awesomest Jedi going. I guess she's not a Jedi anymore though, but
Consider how they got around the rule of 2 with the Sith by having all these Dark Jedi Inquisitors that aren't technically Sith.
Well, you see, there's the thing. You've got your Force users, and then you've got your Jedi and your Sith. And then you've got things like the Night Sisters, who aren't actually Sith. They're just another bunch of Force users who tend to stray towards the dark side.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, it was always kind of implicit anyways. It's like the Sith was kind of, this very formalized order, but you can't have galaxy-spanning wars between, an entire armada of Jedi and 2 guys. That doesn't work. So, however it does work, where you have a Sith order somehow engaged in a galaxy-spanning war with Jedi, there has to be some other, maybe the Sith are this little cabal at the very top of the organizational pyramid, but then underneath them, they would have to have, all kinds of force-wielding foot soldiers. There's not much of a war if nobody else is there to fight it,
Quite.
Nah, they just
somebody to pull up to an apprentice when you're Darth, whoever the crap gets cacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they just will Star Destroyers up from planets. That's what they do.
Also, just to point out something that's actually you can actually see evidence of. Yeah, 1 master, 1 apprentice. That's not so much. That's like, okay, that's like official, because usually the apprentice had some protege of their own that they were grooming for when they eventually would cack off their own master and become the master. And that Force user existed. They just weren't. And if they became known about, the current master might probably do something to cause them to either turn on the current apprentice or just kill them themselves.
Just take a look at Force Unleashed and Galen Starkiller.
If you want to join the Ultima Dragons, you can do so at udic.org, where you can choose your very own dragon name. You can also find the Ultima Dragons on Facebook. We have a Facebook group there. And you can follow at Ultima Dragons on Twitter. or join them on Discord. And if you're feeling really old school, you can even fire up a Telnet client and check out the Weremount. Hit up the show notes for links to all of these. If you want to participate more directly in the podcast, you can send us an email, or if you're feeling a little bit braver, leave us a voice message in one of 3 places: the podcast website, our Facebook page, or on anchor.fm. And you're also welcome to join us on our Discord server to chat with us, to lurk, or even contribute to podcast recordings when they happen. And again, links in the show notes. If you'd like to support Spam Humbug, you can do so at patreon.com/ultimacodex, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to episodes the day before they go live to the general public. You'll also get access to behind-the-scenes audio when we have some to share, and possibly other interesting content. But we also welcome your moral support. You can like the Ultima series on Facebook, follow @UltimaCodex on Twitter, or leave the podcast a review on iTunes. And you're also welcome to share our episodes with your friends and social media circles. Spam Humbug is a production of the Ultima Codex. You can find show notes online at spamhumbug.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time, be virtuous.